Movies make survival gear look effortless. One oversized knife, one lighter flick, one tactical backpack, and suddenly you're ready for anything. Real life isn't that clean. Gear breaks, batteries die, water that looks clear can still make you sick, and the stuff that looks coolest on screen is often the least practical when you're tired, cold, and stressed. In this video, we're calling out the biggest survival gear myths Hollywood keeps repeating, and replacing them with the simple, beginner-friendly reality. What actually works, what's worth carrying, and what's mostly just movie logic. No fear-mongering, no fantasy loadouts, just practical emergency preparedness you can understand and apply. Let's start with the gear everyone thinks they need first. Number 1. The one big knife myth. Movies love the oversized survival knife that somehow replaces an entire toolkit. It chops wood like an axe, pries open doors like a crowbar, slices food like a chef's knife, and stays razor sharp forever. In real life, that kind of blade is usually a compromise that fails at the worst time. A huge knife is heavy on your belt, awkward for careful tasks, and more likely to injure you when you're tired, cold, or rushing. And those movie-style details people get obsessed with, hollow handles, aggressive sawbacks, super thick spines, tend to create weak points, snag on gear, or simply add bulk without adding real performance. What matters in real survival and prepping for beginners is boring but reliable. A strong, comfortable knife that you can control. A practical fixed blade with a solid, continuous piece of metal through the handle. People call this full tang. Is popular for a reason. Fewer failure points, better strength, easier to maintain. The best knife is the one that fits your hand, rides safely in a secure sheath, and does the jobs a knife is actually meant to do. Cutting cordage, shaping small pieces of wood, opening packaging, food prep, basic repairs. When movies show someone doing everything with one blade, they skip the reality that different tasks want different tools. Cutting branches down to size is usually faster and safer with a compact saw. Splitting larger pieces of wood, if you even need to do that, is often easier with the right tool instead of forcing a knife to behave like an axe. If you're building a beginner prepper kit, think in terms of a simple system. A dependable cutting tool, plus a second tool that handles heavier work more efficiently, plus a way to keep the cutting edge in usable shape. And a detail movies almost never show: maintenance. In real life, steel rusts, edges roll, screws loosen, and gear gets dirty. A knife that's tactical but uncomfortable becomes a problem fast. A knife you can safely control, keep clean, and keep sharp beats the fantasy blade every time, because it's the boring gear that keeps working when you're stressed and your hands are cold. Number 2, fire starts don't look like that. On screen, fire is instant. One spark and you've got a warm, steady flame that survives wind, rain, and bad decisions. Lighters work even when they've been soaked. Matches never fail, and the hero always has perfect tinder ready to go. Real fire building is much less dramatic and way more skill-based. A flame isn't a guarantee, it's a process, and the hardest part is almost never making a spark. The hard part is finding or carrying dry, catchable material and protecting the early flame long enough for it to grow. Movies also skip the uncomfortable truth that fire can be dangerous and illegal in certain conditions. In many places, open flames are restricted during dry seasons, and in emergencies you might be safer prioritizing shelter and insulation over trying to force a fire to happen. For emergency preparedness for beginners, the realistic approach is redundancy and realism. Don't bet everything on one ignition source. A lighter is convenient, but it can leak fuel, clog, crack, or simply get lost. Matches can get damp or crushed. Spark tools can work in rough conditions, but they still need proper tinder and practice. The Prepper Essentials mindset here is simple. Carry more than one way to start a fire. Store them so they stay usable, and include safe tinder options that are actually easy to ignite. Also understand what fire is for. Sometimes it's warmth. Sometimes it's water treatment. Sometimes it's cooking. Sometimes it's signaling, but that's not a free win either. A small flame that's controlled and safe can be more valuable than a big movie bonfire that burns resources fast and creates risk. And here's the part that separates real preparedness from fantasy. practice in low-risk settings. If you've never tried to light a fire in damp air with cold hands while protecting the flame from wind, you don't actually know how your gear performs. Prepping how-to guide videos often focus on the tool, but the skill is the real multiplier. Fire is a classic Hollywood myth because it looks simple on camera, but in real life, it's a chain of steps, and any weak link breaks the whole thing. Number 3. Clear stream water can still wreck you. Movies treat water like a visual effect. If it looks clean, it is clean. Someone drinks straight from a mountain stream and instantly feels refreshed. Reality is much less forgiving. Plenty of harmful microbes don't change the look, smell, or taste of water. And even if you're far from cities, water can still pick up contamination from animals upstream, damaged septic systems, floodwater runoff, or old industrial sites. That's why emergency preparedness reality starts with a simple rule. Treat water unless you're absolutely sure it's safe. Another movie mistake is overselling magic devices. Straw-style filters look incredible on camera. Just sip from anything and you're good. But they come with limits. Many portable filters are excellent for certain threats, but not every filter handles every type of risk. Some methods focus on bacteria and protozoa, while others are better for viruses, and most do nothing for chemicals and fuel contamination. Movies also skip the practical issue. Drinking isn't the only water job. You may need water for basic hygiene, cleaning, and food. If your method only works one sip at a time, you can't easily cook, store water, or share with family. For family preparedness and home preparedness, the realistic approach is layered. A way to store water, a way to treat it, and a way to move it safely. Storage matters because it buys you time. Treatment matters because it lowers risk. And containers matter because spilling your water is the fastest way to turn a manageable situation into a crisis. The most dependable systems are usually the simplest ones. Heat treatment, when safe and legal to do, is straightforward because it doesn't rely on delicate parts. Chemical treatment can be lightweight and practical, but it requires time and correct use. Filtration can be fast and convenient, but it needs care, proper storage, and attention to flow rates and clogging. None of this is glamorous, but it's the difference between survival gear explained and survival gear that actually helps. Hollywood never shows the real trade-off. Water safety is often about patience and planning, not about gadgets and cinematic hero shots. Number 4. The bottomless backpack fantasy. In movies, the backpack is basically a pocket universe. It holds rope, a full medical kit, a week of food, spare clothes, tools, and sometimes even a tent. Yet the character runs, climbs, fights, and crawls without ever looking exhausted. Real packs don't work like that. Weight is real, friction is real, and fit is everything. A poorly fitted pack will rub your skin raw, wreck your shoulders, and drain your energy faster than you expect. And the more gear you hang off the outside, the more it catches on branches, door frames, and tight spaces. That tactical look can be a disadvantage in real movement because it's noisy, snag-prone, and hard to manage under stress. In a beginner guide to prepping, the pack isn't the star of the show. It's the system that carries your plan. A good pack is sized for your body and adjusted so the weight rides on your hips, not just your shoulders. It's organized so the items you need first are easy to reach. It's packed so the weight is stable, not swinging and pulling you off balance. Movies also skip the boring but important concept of time cost. If you have to dump your whole bag to find a flashlight, you'll waste time and lose gear. Real-world preparedness favors simple organization. A few pouches or bags by category, a consistent layout you don't change every week, and a habit of putting items back where they belong. Another thing films get wrong is the idea that more is always better. A prepper stockpile in your backpack is not the same as a stockpile at home. A bag is for mobility and short-term essentials, not for your entire life. Emergency preparedness tips for beginners usually land on the same reality. Carry what you can actually use, what you can actually maintain, and what you can actually move with. If your plan depends on sprinting with a heavy pack, your plan depends on movie physics. A realistic approach is testing. Load your pack, walk with it, adjust it, remove what you don't use, and keep the stuff you truly rely on. That's urban prepping and practical preparedness. Gear that matches your real body, your real environment, and your real needs. Number 5. Shelter isn't a tent, it's heat management. Movies treat shelter like a checkbox. Pop a tent, crawl inside, and you're safe. Or wrap up in a thin emergency blanket and instantly become warm and comfortable. Real shelter is more about heat than comfort, and more about insulation than aesthetics. The ground pulls heat from you. Wind strips warmth away. Wet clothes drain body heat fast. And a thin layer of fabric can stop bugs and light rain, but it doesn't automatically keep you warm. This is where Hollywood survival mistakes get people into trouble, because beginners often copy what looks right on screen instead of what works in real conditions. A realistic shelter system is a combination: protection from wind and precipitation, insulation from the ground, and dry layers that help your body hold heat. The miracle blanket myth is a perfect example. Reflective blankets can help in certain situations, but they're loud, they tear, they can trap moisture, and they don't replace insulation. They can be part of a plan, but they're not the plan. Clothing is similar. Movies love the hero who wears one outfit for a week, stays dry, and never gets cold. In real life, layers matter. Moisture management matters. A sweaty base layer can chill you quickly when temperatures drop. Cotton is a common problem because it holds water and dries slowly, which is why you'll often hear people say, "cotton kills" in cold, wet conditions. You don't need expensive gear to understand the principle. Stay as dry as possible, block wind, and keep insulation protected from moisture. This also connects directly to prepping and survival at home. You don't always need wilderness gear for real emergencies. A power outage in winter is a shelter problem too. It's indoor heat management, warm sleeping setup, and safe use of light and heat sources. Movies don't show the quiet reality. Most survival situations are not cinematic wilderness adventures. They're uncomfortable nights, cold rooms, wet socks, and the slow grind of staying warm without burning through supplies. Real shelter is planning and layering, not a magic tent scene. Number 6. First aid isn't movie medicine. Hollywood medical kits are basically plot devices. Someone takes a hard hit, wraps a bandage, and keeps going like nothing happened. Or they pull out a syringe and instantly fix pain, infection, shock, whatever the script needs. Real first aid is less dramatic and more focused on prevention, cleanliness, and basic problems that happen all the time. In real emergencies, the issues that ruin your day are often small. Blisters, sprains, minor cuts, dehydration, stomach problems, headaches, and infections from wounds that weren't cleaned properly. This is where survival gear versus reality matters, because a kit stuffed with impressive-looking items can still be useless if it doesn't cover the basics and if you don't know how to use it safely. A realistic kit prioritizes things like wound cleaning supplies, bandages that actually stay put, gauze, tape, blister care, gloves for hygiene, and a small set of over-the-counter meds used according to the label. For people who take prescriptions, preparedness includes backups when possible and a plan to keep meds stored correctly. Movies also ignore training. Gear doesn't replace knowledge. If you don't know basic first aid, your kit is mostly just a bag of objects. The smartest prepping hacks in this category are boring. Take a reputable first aid class, learn how to handle common injuries, and practice using what you carry. Another myth is thinking you'll perform advanced medical procedures because you saw it on screen. In real life, trying to do complex treatment without training can make things worse. Preparedness is often about stabilizing and seeking help, not playing doctor. Hygiene also gets skipped in movies, yet it matters a lot. Hand cleaning, keeping wounds covered, and preventing cross-contamination can be more important than any fancy tool. If you're building emergency preparedness for beginners, treat medical gear as a practical support system. Basic supplies, basic knowledge, and habits that reduce risk in the first place, like good footwear, pacing yourself, and not pushing through injuries just because the movie hero would. Number 7. Batteries don't last forever. Movie flashlights blast a clean beam all night and never dim. Night vision works whenever the plot needs it. Radios run for days. phones always have power. Real power management is a constant chore. Batteries drain faster in cold weather. High brightness modes eat power. Rechargeables are great, but only if you can reliably recharge them. And the more your plan depends on electronics, the more fragile your plan becomes when charging isn't guaranteed. This is one of the biggest emergency preparedness reality gaps, because modern life trains people to assume power is always there. A more realistic approach is to keep lighting simple and efficient. Headlamps are popular because they free your hands and use power efficiently on lower settings. Spare batteries matter more than an ultra-bright output you only use for a few minutes. Standard battery types can be easier to manage than a pile of different rechargeable formats. Power banks are useful, but you need to test them and rotate them, because batteries age even when they're sitting in a drawer. Solar chargers can help in the right conditions, but they're not magic. Small panels can take a long time to fill a battery, and they need decent sunlight. Crank devices often disappoint if you expect them to fully power modern electronics quickly. The prepping for beginners lesson is to avoid single points of failure. Have a main light, a backup light, and a safe way to keep both running. Movies also skip the social reality of light. In real situations, visible light can draw attention, and constant bright light can make it harder to see in the dark once you turn it off. Managing light isn't just about convenience, it's about control. And once you understand power limits, you start making smarter gear choices. Instead of chasing tactical gadgets, you focus on the basics that keep working. Simple lights, spare power, and habits like charging regularly and not burning through batteries just because you can. Number 8. Navigation and comms aren't guaranteed. Movies treat navigation like a prop. Someone glances at a compass, walks in a straight line, and ends up exactly where they need to be. Or they pull out a GPS, get a perfect signal, and follow a glowing dot to safety. Real navigation is slower and more uncertain, especially if you're stressed or visibility is bad. A compass is useful, but it doesn't replace knowing how to read terrain or how to interpret a map. And GPS is great until your phone dies, the signal drops, the device breaks, or you're in a spot where reception is weak. The most reliable approach for preparedness, especially urban prepping where buildings and infrastructure affect signals, is using layers again. Know your area, have offline maps available, keep a simple printed map if possible, and understand basic direction without relying on electronics. Communication myths are even bigger. On screen, handheld radios work across cities, through mountains, and inside concrete structures with no problem. In reality, range depends on terrain, building density, antenna quality, interference, and legal power limits. Phones aren't guaranteed either, especially during disasters when networks are overloaded or damaged. The practical emergency preparedness tips here aren't flashy. Make a simple communication plan with the people you care about, choose a meetup point, have a backup plan if messages don't go through, and keep key phone numbers written down somewhere safe. Signaling is also misunderstood. Whistles can carry farther than yelling and don't strain your voice. Signal mirrors can work in the right conditions, but they require line of sight and someone looking in the right direction. All of these tools have value, but none of them are automatic rescue buttons. Movies skip the messy part: confusion, missed connections, and the reality that you may need to solve problems without instant coordination. Preparedness is reducing uncertainty, not pretending uncertainty won't exist. Number 9. Food isn't hunting montage calories. Hollywood survival food is usually a dramatic scene. Roasting something over a fire, finding a perfect can of food, or walking into an abandoned store with shelves still stocked. Real food planning is much less exciting and much more mathematical. Calories matter. Protein and fat matter. Cooking fuel matters. Water needs matter. And the effort required to get food matters. The hunting myth is one of the biggest traps for beginners. Hunting requires skill, time, legal knowledge, tools, and luck. It's not a reliable emergency plan for most people, especially not in the early days of a crisis when everyone else has the same idea. Foraging is also often shown as easy, but misidentifying plants can make you sick, and many environments don't offer easy, safe options year-round. Real prepping and emergency preparedness for beginners usually starts at home, not in the wild. A prepper stockpile that works is built from foods you already eat, stored safely, and rotated so it doesn't expire. Shelf-stable basics can carry you far, but you still need variety, because appetite fatigue is real. If your plan is, I'll just eat canned food, remember you also need a way to open it, a way to heat it if needed, and enough water to digest salty foods without feeling miserable. Movies also ignore storage problems like pests, heat, moisture, and packaging failures. Food that's technically edible isn't always usable if it's been contaminated, crushed, soaked, or infested. A realistic approach is keeping it simple. Build depth in your pantry, keep a small mobile food option in a bag, and learn what your body actually tolerates under stress. Preparedness is not buying exotic apocalypse meals and forgetting them. It's knowing what you have, how long it lasts, and how you'll prepare it with limited power and limited water. That's the difference between prepping myths and prepping that actually supports you. Number 10, gear doesn't replace skills or people. The biggest movie myth isn't a knife, a filter, or a backpack. It's the idea that buying the right stuff turns you into a survivor. Movies sell the lone wolf fantasy. One person, one bag, no help needed, no community, no coordination, just pure grit and gear. Real-world survival and emergency preparedness usually works the opposite way. Skills beat stuff. Calm thinking beats panic. A plan beats random improvisation. And people beat isolation. Even basic tasks become harder when you're alone. Gathering water, managing hygiene, keeping watch, fixing problems, staying rested, staying rational. In real emergencies, community support can be the difference between coping and collapsing, whether that community is family, neighbors, or a trusted friend group. This also matters for beginners because it changes how you spend your time and money. Instead of chasing the next prepper essentials gadget, you build practical capability, learning how to use what you already own, practicing safe routines, and setting up systems that keep working when you're tired. Movies also get planning wrong. They show a perfect route, a perfect stash, a perfect backup plan. Reality is more chaotic. Roads close, stores empty, power fluctuates, weather shifts, and people behave unpredictably. A realistic preparedness mindset is flexible. It's thinking in options instead of one single master plan. It's also doing quiet, low-risk testing. Put your kit together and do a no-power evening at home using only the lighting and tools you think you'd rely on. Try cooking a simple meal with the gear you've stored, safely and legally. Walk with your packed bag and see what hurts, what shifts, what annoys you, what you never touch. Check expiration dates and replace things before they become useless. Make sure your documents, contact info, and essential numbers are accessible even if your phone is dead. Adjust the kit, then run the same test again, because preparedness isn't a purchase. It's a habit that gets sharper over time.